we have some big news regarding the new parole in place policy that was announced back on June 18th by the Department of Homeland Security. So as a quick overview, back on June 18th, the Department of Homeland Security made some big news by announcing a new policy where undocumented spouses of US citizens can get parole in the United States and basically be on a path to get their green card without having to leave the United States. This is big news. Again, as a high-level overview, through this new parole in place program, somebody that entered the United States without inspection, they entered the United States without a visa, can now be on a path to get their green card without having to leave the United States. This new program is called Parole in Place. And the big news that I want to update you on in today's video is that USCIS has announced that they will officially begin accepting parole in place applications for this new program as of August 19th, 2024. This is huge news. Again, back on June 18th, when this policy was announced, there were no details as to specifically when USCIS would begin accepting these applications. But now, USCIS has made clear that they will begin accepting these applications on August 19th, 2024. Again, this is huge news. So now, what does this mean for you? If you are considering the new parole in place program as an option for you to essentially be on the path to get a green card in the United States, you might be wondering what you can be doing right now, because as of right now, USCIS is not going to accept these applications until August 19th. So what can you do? Well, what you can do is begin preparing the documentation that you need for when USCIS does begin accepting these applications. So what I want to do now is I want to go to my screen. I've prepared a presentation on the documentation that you should begin collecting now so that come August 19th, you will have the documentation that you need to submit your case. So let's take a look at my screen and we'll discuss further. Okay, so here we have it, our presentation on parole in place and the documentation to begin collecting. So let's get started. So as an initial matter, I want to discuss eligibility. So what requirements do you need to meet to be eligible for this new parole in place program? This will be helpful as we start to navigate the specific documentation that you should begin collecting. So to be considered for a discretionary grant of parole on a case-by-case basis, under this process, you must be present in the United States without admission or parole. So this is not for people that entered the United States with a visa. You must be present in the United States without admission or parole, meaning you did not enter with a visa. The next requirement is that you must have been continuously present in the United States for at least 10 years as of June 17th, 2024. Additionally, you must have a legally valid marriage to a U.S. citizen as of June 17th, 2024. You must also not have any disqualifying criminal history or otherwise constitute a threat to national security or public safety. And you must otherwise merit a favorable exercise of discretion. So that's a general overview on the eligibility requirements to qualify for this new parole in place program. So now let's get into the documentation that someone should begin collecting if they're considering applying for parole in place. So one important item of documentation is, of course, evidence of your legal marriage. Now, we just went over it that one of the components of qualifying for the parole in place program is to demonstrate that you have a legally valid marriage to a U.S. citizen as of June 17th, 2024. So to prove that, you should have some sort of evidence such as a marriage certificate. Now, the next item of documentation that I want to cover is documentation of proof of identity, including expired documents. Of course, you're going to need to prove who you are. How can you do that? You can include a valid state or country driver's license or ID card, a birth certificate with photo identification, a valid passport, or any government-issued document bearing the requestor's name, date of birth, and photo. So these are just different types of documentation you can prove to prove your identity. Now, next, we're going to cover evidence of your spouse's U.S. citizenship. So again, to qualify for parole in place as the undocumented spouse of a U.S. citizen, because of course, this parole in place program is also available to certain stepchildren of U.S. citizens. But here I want to cover the documentation that spouses should be preparing if they're planning on applying for parole in place as the undocumented spouse of a U.S. citizen. So again, here we want to document evidence of your spouse's U.S. citizenship, because again, this program is available to you based on you being the undocumented spouse of a U.S. citizen. So here we want to include evidence that your spouse is a U.S. citizen. To prove that, you can include your U.S. citizen spouse's passport, their birth certificate, or their certificate of naturalization. Those are some documents to start to locate and to have available. Now, here's another very important requirement, and as you can see here, there's going to be lots of suggested documentation to help establish that you satisfy this requirement. Now, let's go over it. So here we have documentation to establish your continued presence in the United States for at least 10 years as of June 17th, 2024. And it goes on to say examples of documentation could include copies of rent receipts or utility bills, school records, such as letters, report cards, etc., hospital or medical records, attestations to your residence by religious entities, unions, or other organizations identifying you by name, official records from a religious entity confirming participation in a religious ceremony, money order receipts for money sent into or out of the United States, birth certificates of children born in the United States, dated bank transactions, automobile license receipts, title or registration, deeds, mortgages, or rental agreement contracts, insurance policies, or tax returns or tax receipts. So that's just a list of potential documentation that you may provide to demonstrate that you've been continuously present in the United States for the last 10 years as of June 17, 2024. Now let's continue. So as I mentioned earlier in this presentation, the new Parole in Place program is available to certain undocumented spouses of U.S. citizens, and in some cases is available to certain undocumented stepchildren of U.S. citizens. So here's the eligibility requirements for stepchildren. It says here, USCIS may also consider certain non-citizen children of requesters under this process if, as of June 17, 2024, they were physically present in the United States without admission or parole and have a qualifying stepchild relationship to a U.S. citizen. Now, I want to also cover some documentation that stepchildren that could potentially qualify for this program should begin collecting. It says here, for non-citizen children of requesters, evidence of eligibility could include, and at the top we have here, evidence of the child's relationship to the non-citizen parent, such as a birth certificate or adoption decree. The next bullet point says evidence of the non-citizen parent's legally valid marriage to a U.S. citizen as of June 17, 2024, such as a marriage certificate. And lastly, evidence of the child's presence in the United States as of June 17, 2024. And as you saw earlier in this presentation, we provided a list of potential documents that can be used to demonstrate presence in the United States. So there you have it. If you're considering the new Parole in Place program, I can imagine that you're thinking to yourself that you really want to apply for this program and you're wondering what you can do in this period of time that you're waiting for USCIS to begin accepting these applications. Well, here you have it. There are a number of documents that are going to be needed in the application process, and for certain people it may be challenging to obtain those documents. So something that you can do to be productive in this period of time is to begin collecting the documents that are going to be important to include in the case. So I hope you found this information very helpful. If you know anybody that can benefit from this information, please feel free to share this video with them. We're all about empowering you with knowledge, so the more people that can watch this video that can benefit from this information, the better. If you like this video, please make sure to hit the thumbs up button so that YouTube knows to share this information with more people. If you haven't yet subscribed, make sure to subscribe to our channel to be in the loop with all the videos that we're posting. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next video.